At a family dinner, my daughter-in-law poured me water and smiled too politely. Under my glass was a folded receipt with today's date and my name on it. I didn't say a word, I just kept the receipt. The restaurant was one of those places where everything costs too much and the portions make you wonder if they forgot half your order. My son Trevor picked it. He always picks places like this now. Places where the lighting is low enough that you can't see the prices without squinting, and the waitstaff speaks in hushed tones like they're working a funeral home instead of serving overpriced fish. I'm 53 years old. I inspect buildings for a living. Commercial properties, residential homes, anything that needs a structural safety assessment before someone signs papers or opens their doors to the public. It's steady work, boring mostly. I look at foundations, load-bearing walls, roof integrity, electrical systems. I write reports. I file paperwork. I've done it for 26 years, and I'm good at it because I notice things other people miss, like receipts under water glasses. "Dad, you're being quiet tonight," Trevor said. He was cutting his steak with the kind of precision that made me think of surgeons in operating rooms. Everything about my son is precise now. His haircut, his suit, the way he folds his napkin. He works in corporate finance. I don't really understand what he does, but he makes enough money to afford restaurants like this one, so I suppose it doesn't matter whether I understand it or not. "Just enjoying the food?" I said. His wife, Danielle, smiled at me from across the table. That smile. Too wide, too bright. Like someone had told her to smile for a photograph and she'd frozen that way. "We're so glad you could make it tonight, Robert. Trevor and I were just saying we don't get to see you enough anymore." "I've been busy with work," I said. "Of course," she said. "We understand. But it's important to make time for family, don't you think?" The receipt was in my jacket pocket now. I'd palmed it smoothly when I lifted my water glass, folded it once more, slipped it away. Neither of them noticed. They were too busy performing their parts in whatever play this was supposed to be. "How's the house?" Trevor asked. He meant my house, the house where he grew up, the house his mother and I bought 31 years ago when we were young and stupid and thought everything would work out fine. She died 4 years ago, breast cancer, fast and brutal. I still live there alone. "House is fine," I said. "You keeping up with the maintenance?" His tone was casual, but there was something underneath it, something that made me think of inspectors checking for termites. "I mean, it's a big property for one person, a lot to manage." "I manage," I said. Danielle reached across the table and touched my hand. Her fingers were cool and dry. "We just worry about you, Robert, living alone in that big house. At your age, it's a lot of responsibility. At my age. I'm 53, not 90. My back hurts sometimes in the morning, and I need reading glasses now, but I'm not exactly 1 foot in the grave." "I appreciate the concern," I said. I didn't pull my hand away. I wanted to see how long she'd keep it there. She held on for another 3 seconds, then withdrew, reaching for her wine glass instead. "We were thinking," Trevor said. He set down his fork and knife, positioned them parallel on his plate like he was staging a photograph. "Maybe it would be good for you to see someone. Professionally." "I'm not depressed," I said. "Not a therapist, Dad. A doctor. Just for a checkup. When's the last time you had a full physical?" 2 months ago, Dr. Patterson. Everything came back normal." Trevor and Danielle exchanged a glance. Quick, practiced, like they'd rehearsed this conversation before tonight. Probably they had. "Patterson retired last year," Trevor said. "Moved to Florida with his wife." "Then it must have been someone else," I said. Another glance between them. Danielle's smile slipped for just a moment, and I saw something else underneath it. Not concern, not worry, something colder. "Dad, have you been forgetting things?" Trevor asked. His voice was gentle now, the kind of gentle people use when they're talking to children or the elderly. "Little things, maybe? Appointments? Names?" "No," I said, "because if you have been, That's nothing to be ashamed of. It happens. Stress, aging, grief, these things affect memory. There are specialists who can help. I looked at my son, really looked at him. He had his mother's eyes, but nothing else of her remained in his face. She used to laugh at stupid jokes. She used to dance in the kitchen when she thought no one was watching. She used to grab my hand under the table at restaurants and squeeze it 3 times, which was our signal for I love you. Trevor didn't have any of that in him anymore. Maybe he never did. Maybe I'd just been too busy noticing the parts of him that came from Elizabeth to see the parts that came from somewhere else entirely. I'm not forgetting anything, I said. The rest of the dinner passed in careful small talk. Danielle mentioned a charity fundraiser she was organizing. Trevor talked about a promotion he was expecting. I ate my food and nodded in the right places and kept my hand away from my jacket pocket, even though I wanted to touch the receipt again to make sure it was still there, that I hadn't imagined it. When the check came, Trevor grabbed it before I could reach for my wallet. My treat, Dad. We invited you. Thanks, I said. Outside, in the parking lot, Danielle hugged me. She smelled like expensive perfume and something else underneath it. Something chemical. Cleaning products, maybe. Or antiseptic. Take care of yourself, Robert, she said into my ear. We'll see you soon. Trevor shook my hand. Firm grip. Eye contact. Everything his corporate training had taught him about projecting confidence and sincerity. Think about what I said, Dad, about seeing a doctor. I can make some calls, get you in with someone good, someone who specializes in cognitive health. I'll think about it, I said. I didn't think about it. I drove home, parked in my garage, went inside, and spread the receipt out on my kitchen table under the bright overhead light. It was from a medical supply store on the east side of town. Today's date. Today's time, 2:47 p.m. The name on the transaction was Robert Hayward. My name. But I hadn't been to any medical supply store today. I'd been at a job site all afternoon, inspecting a commercial warehouse that was being converted into office space. I had the signed paperwork from the building manager to prove it. The items listed on the receipt were adult incontinence pads, pack of 30, bed rail, adjustable, medication organizer, 7-day, digital thermometer. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, looking at that receipt. Not moving, not thinking, just looking. Then I pulled out my phone and took a photograph of it, made sure the date, time, store name, and item list were all clearly visible. Saved the image to 3 different places: my phone, my computer, and a cloud storage account I used for work documents. I poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey and sat in the living room with the lights off, thinking. Someone had gone to a medical supply store today, used my name, and purchased items that suggested I was elderly, incontinent, confused, and needed constant monitoring. Someone had then placed the receipt under my water glass at dinner, making sure I would find it, but giving me no opportunity to question it in the moment. That someone wanted me to know, wanted me to understand that wheels were already in motion. I drank my whiskey and stared at the dark shapes of furniture around me. Elizabeth's reading chair by the window, the bookshelf we'd built together one summer, the coffee table we'd bought at an estate sale 20 years ago because it was solid oak and only needed refinishing. Everything in this house had a history. Every piece of furniture, every picture on the wall, every room held memories of a life we'd built together. And now someone was trying to take it away from me. Not trying, executing a plan. The difference mattered. I finished my whiskey and went to bed. I didn't sleep well, but then I hadn't expected to. The next morning, I drove to the medical supply store. It was in a strip mall between a pawn shop and a Vietnamese restaurant, the kind of place that probably did steady business but never got busy enough to draw attention. The parking lot was half empty. A bell chimed when I pushed through the door. The woman behind the counter looked up from her phone. She was maybe 30, wearing scrubs with cartoon characters on them. Name tag, said Jessica. Can I help you find something? She asked. I hope so, I said. I pulled up the photograph of the receipt on my phone and showed it to her. This transaction was made yesterday afternoon. I need to know if you remember the person who made this purchase. She squinted at the screen. That's a lot of items. Did you need to return something? No. I need to know who bought these items. Are you Robert Hayward? I am. She looked at me more carefully now, taking in my jeans, my work jacket, my face, comparing me to whatever image she had in her head of someone who needed incontinence pads and bed rails. You made this purchase yesterday, she said slowly. No, I didn't. Her expression shifted, confusion, then suspicion. Sir, I can't give out information about other customers' purchases. Privacy policy. I'm not asking about another customer. I'm asking about my own name being used for a transaction I didn't make. That's fraud. That word, fraud, made her straighten up. She glanced toward the back of the store, where I assumed a manager was lurking somewhere among the shelves of medical equipment. Let me get my manager, she said. The manager was a tired-looking man in his 50s with thinning hair and the kind of face that suggested he'd spent his entire career dealing with problems he didn't get paid enough to solve. His name tag said Raymond. There a problem? He asked. I showed him the receipt photograph, explained the situation. He listened without interrupting, then asked to see my ID. I handed over my driver's license. He compared the name to the receipt, then looked at me again. You're saying you didn't make this purchase, he said. That's exactly what I'm saying. But this is your name on the transaction. Someone used my name. We require ID for large purchases, Raymond said. Company policy. If someone bought these items under your name, they would have needed to show identification. Then check your records, I said. You must have security cameras. He hesitated. I could see him calculating. The potential liability, the effort required, the possibility that I was lying or confused or both. We do have cameras, he said finally, but I can't just show you the footage. That's not how this works. If you believe fraud has been committed, you need to file a police report. I will, I said. But first, I need to know if you remember who made this purchase. Young woman, maybe? Late 20s? Blonde? About 5'6"? I was describing Danielle. Raymond shook his head. I wasn't working yesterday afternoon. Jessica was on shift. We both looked at Jessica. She was chewing her bottom lip, phone forgotten on the counter. I don't really remember, she said. We get a lot of customers, and I work 5 days a week, so everything kind of blurs together. These are specific items, I said. For elder care. You'd remember someone buying all of this at once. She shrugged. Maybe? I mean, we do get caregivers in here buying supplies for their relatives. It's not unusual. Did the person who bought these items seem like a caregiver? I don't know. I guess. Raymond cut in. Sir, I understand you're concerned, but without a police report, there's nothing more I can do for you. If you want to file a formal complaint, we'll cooperate with law enforcement. But I can't give you access to our security footage or customer information. I thanked them and left. I hadn't expected them to hand over anything useful, but I'd needed to establish a few things. First, that the purchase was real and had been made using my name. Second, that there was a paper trail. Third, that I was taking action to investigate it, which would matter later if anyone tried to claim I was confused or paranoid. I sat in my truck for a few minutes, watching the entrance to the medical supply store. Then I pulled out my phone and called Trevor. He answered on the third ring. Hey, Dad. Everything okay? Fine, I said. I just wanted to thank you again for dinner last night. It was nice to spend time with you and Danielle. Of course. We should do it more often. I've been thinking about what you said, about seeing a doctor. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should get a checkup, just to be safe. There was a pause. Not long, but noticeable. Like he'd been expecting me to resist and was recalibrating now that I wasn't. That's great, Dad. Really. I'm glad you're taking this seriously. Do you know anyone you'd recommend? You mentioned specialists? Yeah, I do. Let me make some calls, see who's available. I'll text you with some options, okay? Thanks, Trevor. Of course, that's what family's for. I ended the call and sat there staring at my phone. My son's voice had been warm, reassuring, exactly what you'd expect from a concerned child checking in on an aging parent. But underneath it, I'd heard something else, something that sounded a lot like satisfaction. He was expecting me to comply, expecting me to walk into whatever came next without resistance. That was fine. I could play compliant. I'd been inspecting buildings for over 2 decades, and one thing you learn in that work is how to spot structural weaknesses before anyone else does. You look at a building and you see what's holding it up. You see where the weight is distributed. You see where the pressure points are. And then, if you want to, you see exactly how to make it all come down. The text from Trevor came through that evening while I was eating leftover Chinese food, straight from the container, standing at my kitchen counter. 3 names, 3 phone numbers, all doctors specializing in geriatric medicine and cognitive health. He'd even included a note. I called ahead and mentioned you. They're expecting to hear from you. Let me know which one you choose and I'll help coordinate the appointment. I saved the information but didn't call any of them. Instead, I spent the next 2 days doing what I do best, documenting, investigating, building a case. I started with the medical supply store. I didn't go back inside, but I did park across the street during afternoon hours and photograph everyone who entered and exited. On day 2, I saw Danielle's car, a silver Lexus with vanity plates that read DNLL, pull into the parking lot at 3:15 p.m. She went inside carrying a large purse and came out 12 minutes later empty-handed. I photographed the car, the plates, the timestamp, her walking in and walking out. Then I followed her. I'm not proud of it, but I'm not ashamed either. When someone is executing a plan against you, you need to understand what that plan is. You need to see the whole picture before you decide how to respond. She drove to a law office downtown, parked in the underground garage, took the elevator up. I couldn't follow her into the building without being obvious, so I waited. She was inside for 47 minutes. When she came out, she was talking on her phone, gesturing with one hand while she walked. She looked animated, excited even. After the law office, she stopped at a coffee shop, spent 20 minutes inside with a woman I didn't recognize, then drove home to the house she shared with Trevor in a neighborhood where every lawn looked like it belonged in a magazine. I drove home too, pulled out my laptop, started digging. Public records are easier to access than most people think. Property records, business registrations, court filings. It's all there if you know where to look and you have the patience to sort through it. The house Trevor and Danielle lived in was purchased 3 years ago. Joint ownership. They'd refinanced twice in that time, pulling equity out both times. According to the county assessor's records, the property was currently worth about $740,000, but they owed nearly $650,000 on it. Interesting. I dug further. Trevor's LinkedIn profile said he was a senior financial analyst at a firm called Meridian Capital Partners. I looked up the firm. Mid-sized, respectable, the kind of place that managed investment portfolios for people with money. The kind of place where you made good money yourself, but not great money. Not enough to afford a $750,000 house and a Lexus and dinners at restaurants where the portions are small and the lighting is low. Unless you were living beyond your means, or unless you were expecting a significant financial improvement in the near future. I sat back in my chair and thought about that, about what kind of financial improvement might be coming, about what my son might be counting on. My house was paid off. I'd bought it 31 years ago for $127,000, and Elizabeth and I had made the last mortgage payment 6 years before she died. According to current market estimates, it was worth about $580,000 now. Not a fortune, but not nothing either, and I didn't have a will, not updated anyway. The old one was still in my safe, written 20 years ago when Trevor was a child and Elizabeth was alive. By default, if I died or became incapacitated, everything would go to Trevor as my only living relative. The house, my savings, my retirement accounts, everything. I made myself a drink and thought about my son standing at that restaurant table, cutting his steak with surgical precision. I thought about Danielle's cool fingers on my hand. I thought about the receipt with my name on it, listing items that painted a picture of a man who couldn't take care of himself anymore. They were building a narrative, and narratives, once established, can be very difficult to dismantle. On the third day, Trevor called me again. "Hey, Dad, just checking in. Have you called any of those doctors yet?" "Been meaning to," I said. "Work's been busy." "I know, but this is important. Your health should come first." "You're right," I said. "I'll call tomorrow." "Want me to do it for you?" "I don't mind making the appointment. I know how these things can feel overwhelming." Overwhelming. There was that tone again, the gentle, patient tone you use with someone who can't handle basic tasks anymore. "I can make my own appointments, Trevor." "Of course you can. I just thought I could help, that's all." "I appreciate it. Also, Dad, I wanted to mention something else. Danielle and I have been talking, and we were thinking it might be good for you to have someone come by the house. You know, to help with cleaning, maintenance, that kind of thing. Just to take some of the burden off you." "I don't need a housekeeper," I said. "Not a housekeeper. More like a home health aide. Someone who can check in on you, make sure you're eating properly, help with anything you need. I'm not an invalid." "No one's saying you are. We just want to make sure you're okay. Living alone at your age, in a house that size, it's a lot. And you've seemed a little off lately. Forgetful, distracted." "I haven't been forgetful." "Dad, you told us you saw Dr. Patterson 2 months ago, but Dr. Patterson retired last year. That's forgetting." I could have explained. Could have said I misspoke, got the name wrong, meant someone else. But I didn't. I let the silence stretch out instead, let Trevor interpret it however he wanted. "Just think about it, okay?" he said finally. "We only want what's best for you." After he hung up, I sat in my living room and looked at the photographs on the wall. Elizabeth and me on our wedding day, Trevor as a baby, then a toddler, then a teenager. Family vacations, holidays, ordinary moments that had seemed unremarkable at the time, but now felt precious because they represented something that no longer existed. My phone buzzed. A text from Trevor. "I took the liberty of setting up an initial consultation for you with Dr. Ellen Vasquez. She's great, very understanding. The appointment is next Tuesday at 10 a.m. I'll pick you up at 9:30. I stared at that text for a long time. I could refuse. I could cancel the appointment, tell Trevor to back off, make it clear I wasn't going along with any of this. Or I could go. I could walk into that consultation and see exactly what they had planned. See what narrative they were building and how far along they were in the process. Sometimes the best way to understand a structure is to let someone show you its design. Let them think you're cooperating while you're actually mapping every weakness, every flaw, every point of vulnerability. I texted back, "Thanks. See you Tuesday." The weekend passed slowly. I worked on Saturday, inspecting a small office building that was changing hands. The foundation was solid, but there was water damage in the basement that the sellers hadn't disclosed. I documented it thoroughly, took photographs from multiple angles, wrote up my report. The buyers weren't going to be happy, but better they found out now than after closing. On Sunday, I drove out to the cemetery where Elizabeth was buried. I hadn't been in a few months. Her grave was in a section under oak trees, peaceful and quiet. I stood there for a while, not saying anything, just being present. The headstone was simple granite with her name, dates, and a line I'd chosen from a poem she'd loved. "The stars are not wanted now." "Trevor's trying to take the house," I said finally. Speaking out loud felt strange. He's trying to make it look like I can't take care of myself anymore, like I need to be in some facility somewhere. The wind moved through the oak trees. Somewhere nearby, a bird sang. "I don't know what to do about it," I said. "He's my son, our son, but I don't think there's anything of you left in him anymore." I stayed until the sun started to drop toward the horizon, then drove home. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw a car I didn't recognize parked across the street. Dark sedan, tinted windows. It stayed there for about 20 minutes after I went inside, then drove away. I made a note of the time and wrote down as much of the license plate as I'd been able to see. Tuesday morning, Trevor picked me up at exactly 9:30. He was wearing a suit, like he'd taken time off work to do this, or maybe he'd scheduled this around work. Either way, the message was clear. This was important enough to warrant his direct involvement. "Morning, Dad. You ready?" "As I'll ever be," I said. The drive to Dr. Vasquez's office took 15 minutes. Trevor spent most of it making small talk. Work stuff, weather, a movie he and Danielle had seen last weekend. Nothing of substance, nothing that required real answers. The medical building was new, all glass and steel and expensive landscaping. Dr. Vasquez's office was on the 3rd floor. The waiting room had soft lighting and neutral colors and magazines that were current. A receptionist who looked like she'd stepped out of a catalog smiled at us when we approached the desk. "Robert Hayward," Trevor said before I could speak. 10 a.m. appointment with Dr. Vasquez." The receptionist checked her computer. "Yes, of course. We have the paperwork your son sent over. If you could just verify a few things and sign here." She slid a tablet across the desk. Several forms were pulled up, already filled in with my information. Name, date of birth, address, medical history. Most of it was accurate. Some of it wasn't. Under current medications, someone had listed 3 drugs I'd never heard of. Under primary concerns, someone had checked boxes for memory loss, confusion, difficulty with daily tasks, and depression. Under emergency contact, Trevor's name and number were listed. There was no mention of me having any say in my own medical decisions. I looked at my son. He was standing slightly behind me, close enough to see the tablet screen, watching me review the forms. "These aren't right," I said quietly. "What's not right?" the receptionist asked, her professional smile still in place. "The medications. I'm not taking any of these." Trevor leaned in. "Dad, you showed me your pills last month, remember? We talked about it. I don't take medication. You do. Don't you remember?" The receptionist's smile had faded. She was looking between us now, uncertain. I could push this. I could make a scene, refuse to sign, demand to speak with the doctor before proceeding. But that would accomplish nothing except confirming whatever narrative Trevor had already established with these people. So instead, I signed the forms. We sat in the waiting room. Trevor checked his phone. I looked at a magazine without reading any of the words. After 10 minutes, a nurse called my name. "Would you like me to come in with you?" Trevor asked. "No," I said. "I think it would be helpful if I were there, to provide context." I said no. The nurse glanced between us. "It's up to the patient," she said gently. Trevor nodded, disappointed but not surprised. "I'll be right here, Dad, if you need me." I followed the nurse down a corridor to an examination room. All normal. She asked me a few questions about my medical history, comparing my answers to what was already in the system. I noticed she frowned slightly when I told her I wasn't taking any medications. "Your son indicated you were prescribed medication for hypertension," she said. My son was mistaken. She made a note in the tablet she was carrying. "Dr. Vasquez will be in shortly." Dr. Vasquez turned out to be a woman in her early 40s with dark hair pulled back in a bun and the kind of face that suggested she'd heard every excuse and lie patients could invent. She sat down across from me and pulled up my file on her own tablet. "Mr. Hayward, I understand your son is concerned about some cognitive changes he's been noticing. Can you tell me what's been going on from your perspective?" "Nothing's been going on," I said. Your son mentioned memory difficulties, forgetting appointments, getting confused about dates, misremembering conversations. My son is exaggerating. Is he? She looked at me directly, not unkindly. Because, from what I've been told, there have been several incidents that suggest some level of cognitive impairment. And I have to say, Mr. Hayward, it's very common for patients to underestimate or deny these kinds of changes. The brain is remarkably good at compensating, at filling in gaps, at making us believe we're functioning normally even when we're not. I'm functioning fine. Can you tell me what day it is? Tuesday. What's the date? I told her. She made a note. Can you count backward from 100 by sevens? I could. I did. She made more notes. Can you repeat these 3 words after me? Apple, table, penny. I repeated them. She asked me more questions. Where was I born? What year did I graduate high school? What was my mother's maiden name? Simple things, all of which I answered correctly. Then she said, Can you tell me those 3 words I asked you to remember? Apple, table, penny. Another note. She was writing a lot of notes. Your son mentioned an incident where you claimed to have seen a doctor who had actually retired. Can you tell me about that? I misspoke, I said. I meant a different doctor. Which doctor? I hesitated, and I could see her register that hesitation, interpret it as confusion rather than calculation. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, I said, but I have the paperwork at home. Would you be willing to bring that paperwork to a follow-up appointment? If necessary. I think it would be helpful, Mr. Hayward. I'm not trying to attack you or suggest you're incompetent, but your son is genuinely concerned, and from what I'm seeing here, there are some red flags that warrant further evaluation. What kind of evaluation? Nothing invasive, some cognitive testing, maybe an MRI to rule out any structural issues, standard stuff. And if I refuse? She sat back in her chair. That's your right. You're an adult, and unless someone can demonstrate that you're a danger to yourself or others, I can't force you to do anything. But I would strongly encourage you to consider it. If there is something going on, early intervention can make a significant difference in outcomes. I looked at her and saw someone who believed she was doing the right thing. Someone who'd been presented with information by my son and had no reason to doubt it. Someone who probably dealt with families in denial all the time, adult children bringing in aging parents who refused to admit they needed help. I'll think about it, I said. She gave me a referral for cognitive testing, told me to schedule the follow-up at the front desk, shook my hand and said she looked forward to seeing me again. Trevor was waiting in the lobby exactly where I'd left him. He stood up when he saw me, trying to read my expression. How did it go? He asked. Fine. What did she say? She wants me to do some tests. That's good, Dad. That's really good. We walked to the car. Trevor drove. I looked out the window at the buildings passing by, at the people on the sidewalks, at the ordinary day unfolding around us. I'm proud of you, Trevor said, for taking this seriously. I know it's not easy. No, I agreed. It's not easy. He dropped me off at home. I watched him drive away, waited until his car turned the corner, then went inside and straight to my computer. I had work to do. At 11:47 p.m., my security system alarm went off. Not the cameras, the actual door alarm. Someone was trying to force entry through the back door. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the camera feeds. A figure in dark clothing, same person who'd slashed my tires, was working on the back door with some kind of tool. Behind them, a second figure waited, holding what looked like a crowbar. I called 911. Someone's breaking into my house. I have them on camera right now. The dispatcher asked for my address and assured me officers were on the way. Response time: 6 minutes. 6 minutes is a long time when someone's breaking into your home. I grabbed the only weapon I had, a heavy Maglite flashlight, and positioned myself in the hallway where I could see both the back door and the front door. If they got in, I'd at least have warning. The back door lock gave way. I heard the snap of wood, then the door swinging open. 2 figures stepped into my kitchen. "Police are on the way," I shouted. "You're on camera. Leave now and maybe you don't go to prison." One of the figures pulled off their hood. Danielle. Her face was flushed, her eyes wild. She was breathing hard. "Where is it?" she demanded. "Get out of my house." "The case file. The evidence you've been compiling. I know you have it. Where is it?" The second figure moved into the light. Not Trevor. Someone I didn't recognize. Male, maybe 30, built like someone who worked construction or manual labor. "We can do this easy or hard," Danielle said. "Give us the file and we leave. Make this difficult and what? You assault an elderly man in his own home? That's a felony? That's prison time. You think anyone will believe you?" Confused old man claims he was attacked by his caring daughter-in-law who was just checking on him. After you've been harassing us, making false accusations, creating a pattern of paranoid behavior? She'd thought this through. She had a counter-narrative ready. "I have cameras," I said, "recording everything right now." "Then you better tell me where they are too. Cameras and files, everything you have against us." The man with the crowbar moved toward me, slow, deliberate, trying to be intimidating. "I wouldn't do that," I said quietly. "Or what, old man? You're going to stop me?" He was 3 steps away when I heard sirens outside. Faint, but getting louder. Danielle heard them too. Her expression shifted from angry to calculating to panicked in the span of seconds. "We're leaving," she said to the man. "But now!" They ran, back through the kitchen, out the broken door into my backyard. I heard a fence panel crash, then running footsteps, then nothing. I stood in my hallway, still holding the flashlight, breathing hard. The police arrived 90 seconds later, 4 officers this time, including Patterson. They searched the house, secured the broken door, took my statement. "You saw their faces?" Patterson asked. "One of them, my daughter-in-law, Danielle Hayward. The other was male, but I didn't recognize him." "You're sure it was your daughter-in-law?" "Positive. She spoke to me, asked for documents, threatened me." Patterson's expression was skeptical. "Mr. Hayward, we've responded to several calls from you over the past few weeks. Family disputes, property damage, concerns about your son, and now you're claiming your daughter-in-law broke into your house. You understand how this looks. How does it look? It looks like someone who's confused, who's interpreting family concern as hostility, who might be experiencing paranoid delusions. I have security footage. You can see them breaking in. Can I see their faces on the footage?" I pulled it up on my phone. The angles were clear on the back door being forced open, on 2 figures entering. But both were wearing hoods, and while Danielle had pulled hers off while inside, that part wasn't captured by the exterior cameras. "This shows 2 people breaking in," Patterson said. "It doesn't show your daughter-in-law specifically, and you mentioned she spoke to you, but there's no audio on this footage. Because she was inside when she spoke to me. I'm telling you it was her." "I'm not saying you're lying, Mr. Hayward, but I am saying that what you're reporting is very serious, and we need concrete evidence to act on it. Do you have anything else? Anything that definitively proves your daughter-in-law was here tonight?" I thought about the recorder in my jacket pocket, the one I'd been wearing all day, but I'd taken it off before bed, left it charging on my dresser upstairs. "No," I said. Patterson sighed. "Then we'll file a report about the break-in. We'll dust for prints on the door. But unless we find something concrete linking specific individuals to this crime, there's not much else we can do." After they left, I sat on my couch and looked at the broken back door. Temporary repair done by one of the officers, but it would need to be replaced properly tomorrow. I pulled out my phone and called William Brenner, even though it was past midnight. He answered groggily. "Robert, what's wrong?" I told him everything. The break-in, Danielle, her demands, the police response. "Jesus," he muttered. "They actually did it. They escalated to home invasion." And the police don't believe me. Because you don't have proof. Just your word against the security footage that doesn't show faces. So what do? You document this like everything else. You make sure it's part of the case file. And Thursday, at the restraining order hearing, you present everything. The timeline of escalation, the pattern of behavior, tonight's break-in. You show the judge that this isn't a confused elderly man imagining threats. It's a real, documented campaign of intimidation and attempted theft. Will a judge believe me? If you present it right? Yes. The evidence is overwhelming, Robert. The financial motive, the forged documents, the fake court evaluator, the property damage, now an actual break-in. Any reasonable person looking at this objectively can see what's happening. After hanging up, I tried to sleep but couldn't. Every sound in the house made me tense. Every creak, every settling noise might be someone coming back. At 4 a.m., I gave up and made coffee, sat at my kitchen table and watched the sky slowly lighten through my window. They'd crossed a line tonight. Danielle had admitted what she wanted. She'd come for my evidence, for the documentation that could destroy her in court, which meant she knew how damaging it was, which meant she was desperate enough to commit felonies to make it disappear, which meant I needed to be even more careful about protecting it. I spent the pre-dawn hours making additional copies of everything, uploading files to 3 different cloud services, emailing encrypted copies to myself and to William, creating redundancy upon redundancy. If something happened to me, if they somehow succeeded in silencing me, the evidence would still surface. The truth would still come out. Thursday morning, the day of the restraining order hearing, I woke up early and got dressed in my best clothes. Not a suit, I didn't own one anymore, but nice slacks, a button-down shirt, a blazer I'd bought for Elizabeth's funeral. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a tired man in his 50s who'd been fighting for weeks and was running low on reserves. But I also saw someone who wasn't giving up. I met William at the courthouse at 9 a.m. He was carrying 2 briefcases full of documentation. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." We went through security and up to the 3rd floor where family court cases were heard. The hallway outside the courtroom was crowded with lawyers and clients and people waiting for their cases to be called. I saw Trevor and Danielle at the far end of the hall, standing with a lawyer I recognized from the letterhead, someone from Whitmore and Associates. They saw me too. Trevor looked uncomfortable. "Don't engage," William murmured. "Don't even make eye contact." We sat on a bench and waited. The courtroom doors opened at 9:30. We filed in along with 24 other people waiting for hearings. The judge was a woman in her 50s named Sandra Kowalski. She had a reputation, William had told me, for being no-nonsense and intolerant of family drama. Our case was 3rd on the docket. We sat through 2 other hearings, a custody dispute and a protective order for domestic violence, while I tried to calm my racing heart. Then the clerk called our case. Hayward versus Hayward, petition for mutual restraining orders. We approached the judge's bench, Trevor and Danielle on one side with their lawyer, me and William on the other. Judge Kowalski looked at both parties, then at the thick file in front of her. "I've reviewed the preliminary filings," she said. "This appears to be an escalating family dispute involving allegations of harassment, fraud, attempted guardianship, and property damage. Is that accurate?" "Yes, Your Honor," both lawyers said in unison. "Then let's start with Mr. Robert Hayward's petition. Counselor?" William stood. "Your Honor, my client is a 53-year-old man who has been subjected to a coordinated campaign of intimidation, fraud, and attempted theft by his son and daughter-in-law. We have extensive documentation showing a pattern of behavior designed to falsely establish cognitive impairment in order to gain control of his property and assets." He began presenting evidence. The receipt from the medical supply store, the forged note in my handwriting, the fake court evaluator, police reports about the property damage. The recording from Trevor and Danielle's house where they discussed the guardianship strategy. Judge Kowalski listened without interrupting, taking notes. Then it was the other lawyer's turn. A man named Richard Moss, who looked like he charged $500 an hour. Your Honor, what we have here is a tragic case of an elderly man experiencing cognitive decline and interpreting normal family concern as persecution. My clients have tried repeatedly to help Mr. Hayward, arranging medical evaluations, offering assistance with his property, attempting to ensure his safety. Instead of accepting this help, he has responded with paranoid accusations and has created elaborate conspiracy theories to explain what is actually loving concern from his only son. He presented his own evidence, emails from Trevor expressing worry, statements from Dr. Vasquez about cognitive concerns, the report from the Elder Services visit, a character witness statement from someone I'd never met claiming I'd been acting erratically at neighborhood gatherings. It was all carefully constructed, all designed to paint me as confused and Trevor as a devoted son. Furthermore, Moss continued, Mr. Hayward's claims about a break-in 2 nights ago lack any credible evidence. No faces were captured on camera. No witnesses besides Mr. Hayward himself. The police report notes that the responding officer had concerns about Mr. Hayward's mental state. This is consistent with the pattern we're seeing, an elderly man misinterpreting events and creating false narratives. Judge Kowalski held up a hand. I want to address that directly. Mr. Robert Hayward, you claim your daughter-in-law broke into your home Tuesday night. Can you provide any evidence beyond your own testimony? I stood. I saw her face, Your Honor. She spoke to me. She demanded documentation I'd compiled about their financial situation and their attempts to get guardianship. But the security footage doesn't show her face. No, Your Honor, but... And the police couldn't find any forensic evidence linking her to the scene? They dusted for prints. I don't know the results yet. Judge Kowalski looked at me for a long moment. I couldn't read her expression. I'm going to be direct with you, Mr. Hayward. I see 2 possible scenarios here. 1, your son and daughter-in-law are executing an elaborate scheme to steal your property through fraudulent guardianship proceedings. 2, you're experiencing cognitive difficulties and misinterpreting your family's genuine concern as malicious intent. The evidence before me is contradictory. For every document suggesting Scheme 1, there's a document suggesting Scheme 2. Your Honor, William interjected, the financial records alone show clear motive. Trevor and Danielle are in severe debt. They need money desperately. My client's house represents a solution to their financial crisis. Being in debt doesn't make someone a criminal, Moss shot back. Lots of families struggle financially. That doesn't mean they're trying to defraud their relatives. Judge Kowalski raised her hand again. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm ordering independent psychological evaluations for both parties. Mr. Robert Hayward will undergo a comprehensive assessment by a court-appointed neuropsychologist. Mr. Trevor Hayward will undergo a psychological evaluation to determine if there's evidence of manipulation or exploitation. I'm also ordering temporary restraining orders for both parties. No contact, no communication, no approaching each other's residences. These orders will remain in effect until I have the evaluation results and we reconvene for a full hearing. She banged her gavel. 4 weeks. Next available date is December 12th. Evaluations must be completed by December 1st. Don't contact each other, don't violate these orders. If you do, someone's going to jail. Understood? Yes, Your Honor, we all said.